Hello, everyone. My name is Gilda Ross, and I coordinate the GPS Parent Series. This is our 30th year. If you're a first timer, I hope you'll take a look at our website and find all of the programs that we present in multiple languages. Find the programs that speak to you, and we have an ask, and that ask is to please share this resource. GPS is free to everyone, everywhere, and we want others to know, to be informed, to be inspired as you will be today. And that is a promise. I can guarantee it. Let me tell you quickly about upcoming events that we have scheduled in the next few weeks. At this very busy time of year, I do hope you'll circle your calendar. On Thursday night, Tim Fields from Emory University will be talking about his book, The Black Family's Guide to College Admission. We also have that program being presented in Spanish. Find the links on our website. Next up, the following week, we will be welcoming Jeff Salingo. He'll be talking about his new book, Dream Book, first book that he has visited us for several times, Who Gets In and Why. And Jeff will be in conversation with Ron Lieber. And he'll be talking about his book about the biggest financial decision your family will ever make, college. Should be an interesting discussion on December 10th. Then, staying with this theme, Christopher Willard will be talking about College Mental Health 101, High School Mental Health 101, Elementary Mental Health 101. That's on December 16th, just before we break for the holidays. When we come back in January, I know you'll be ready for this conversation. Gretchen Rubin will be in conversation with Dr. Laurie Santos. They will be talking about Gretchen's new book, most recent book, Secrets of Adulthood. That's Thursday, the 8th. So again, we look forward to having you back again. We are going to get right into this important discussion. This is an excellent book. Let me begin with that. It really is a book that once you start, you're going to want to just read to the very, very, very last in one sitting. It's that great, and it's that enjoyable, and it's that informative. So let's get going. Introducing today, I'm so excited, Alexia Ellett, who is the principal of Lake Park High School, is joining us again for the introductions. Take it away, Alexia.
Thank you, Gilda. Ethan Kross is a world-renowned expert in emotion regulation, a distinguished professor and best-selling author at the University of Michigan's top-ranked psychology department and its Ross School of Business. He investigates how individuals' self-talk influences their well-being, performance, decision-making, and relationships. After earning his PhD and a postdoctoral fellowship in psychology at Columbia University, he joined the University of Michigan in 2008, where he established the Emotion and Self-Care Laboratory. His research has been published in prestigious journals such as Science and the New England Journal of Medicine, among others. He has participated in policy discussions at the White House and has been featured on CBS Evening News, Good Morning America, and NPR's Morning Edition. His groundbreaking research has been highlighted in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and many prominent publications. He is the two-time national best-selling author of Shift, Managing Your Emotions So They Don't Manage You, and Chatter, The Voice in Our Head, Why It Matters and How to Harness It. These books have received numerous accolades and have been translated in over 40 languages. Dr. Kross will be in conversation with Donna Jackson Nakazawa, an award-winning author who explores the connections between neurobiology, emotions, and mental health. She appeared on the Today Show and NPR, and she's a sought-after speaker at major conferences. Donna Nakazawa has previously joined us at GPS to discuss two of her acclaimed books, Girls on the Brink and the Adverse Childhood Experiences Guided Journal. Happily, she will return next year to discuss her forthcoming book, Mind Drama. We are thrilled and honored to welcome these celebrated thought leaders and authors to this very special GPS event today. Thank you.
Hi,
Oh,
everyone. Such a pleasure to be here with you, Dr. Cross. I'm so excited to dive in today. I'm a big fan of your work, and I wanted to just say from the get-go that you've created this astonishing roadmap for everyone on the planet, but today, especially parents and educators, for how we can kind of turn the dial up or down on our emotional state and move skillfully from some of our unpleasant or dysregulated feelings to emotions and strategies that really serve us. And I think you also do a remarkable job of showing us why we want to be able to be strategic and have the tools to do this. So, in today's world, we know that parents and educators are really facing very complex times. We might all be feeling a little more dysregulated from time to time than we would like. So I want to jump right in and just ask you to set the stage for the lens of parenting and the lens of educators. Why might we all want to have the skills to be able to shift our emotional state up or down to better serve our communities and our families?
Well, first of all, Donna, it's an honor to be in conversation with you. Great fan of your writing and work, and thanks, Gilda and Alexia, for the wonderful introductions. Um, so, why does this matter for parents and teachers? Well, parents and teachers are in a unique position of having a double challenge, if you will. On the one hand, they are, last time I checked, human beings. And we know that all human beings grapple with their emotions at times. So, when I'm doing workshops on this topic, I'll often ask people, like, when's the last time you had occasion to manage your emotions in some way? Maybe turn the volume up or down on how positive or negative you're feeling, or maybe you want to shorten or lengthen how long a particular state lasts. You want to get out of that funk of anxiety or maximize your positivity. Without fail, almost everyone in the audience raises their hand that they've struggled with that on that very day that I'm with them. So we all have this challenge of having to deal with the emotional curveballs that life throws at us. But then we also have the challenge of wanting to help other people, i.e., our kids, our students, manage their emotions, right? Sometimes we want to just help build that skill because we care about these individuals greatly. I hope all the parents and teachers listening care about their kids and students. But there are also sometimes acute urgencies that we have. If we're in front of a classroom and one student is dysregulated, you need to address that student because we know that emotions spread like wildfire. They are contagious. So you've got to regulate yourself. You've got to regulate someone else. Now, Donna, when is the last time you had a course on how to do that? Did you
Well,
ever take a class on that growing up?
one of the things I love about the way you present this topic is literally that emotions are first felt in the womb, and that we as humans are having emotional states 90% of our waking hours. However, we never take a course in how to manage them, much less really define them. So my answer is no course, but your book is an excellent way to begin.
Well, thank you for that. It really it astounds me. My oldest daughter is in high school right now, and she's taking advanced math that I don't understand anymore, chemistry, and she's asking me, like, when am I going to use this information in my life? And I do think those are really valuable topics. There's a reason why they're in
Sure.
the kind of educational canon. But I do have to struggle to identify specific instances in which knowledge of this specific nuanced principle is going to be important, right? Maybe it depends on their profession. If she's a biochemist, she'll rely on this all the time. But then I think to myself, like, emotions.
Yeah.
Most people can't even define what an emotion is. Most people think that negative emotions are toxic and should be avoided like the plague, and that if they're experiencing a negative state, there's something wrong with them. These are falsehoods. Like, why is that? So I don't. I know in particular when you get into school systems, there's a question of where do we make room for this new information? That's a problem I would love to have a conversation about. But is it vital to an educator and parents' lives? Absolutely. I mean, I've got a middle schooler and a high schooler. Most of our friends have kids around the same age. Pretty much the first thing we talk about when it's just the adults, like, oh my God, what did the kids do? Or I can't believe what they did. Isn't this amazing? Whether it's trying to share the good things or commiserate about the bad things. And that act itself, of course, sharing information and talking about it, that's tricky too. Like, one of
Yeah,
the myths that I often try to address with people is the myth of you should just vent your emotions, right? Get them
I
out. That doesn't
saw
always help.
that.
So,
I saw that.
yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think that one of the things that I find so hopeful about the work that you're doing in the aggregate is this idea that we're raising children and we're educating children, and my kids are in their 20s. And I know a little bit about what it's like when one person's dysregulated or big feelings bump up against another person's, right, in family life. So you're doing this bi-directionally so that we have the skills so that our big feelings don't bump up against theirs and their big feelings don't bump up so much against ours. And I think by doing that, we're really creating greater parent-child connection in the home. And you have given us an absolute gift, a treasure trove of strategies to help us do that. And I really want to dig in. And you mentioned two of them from the get-go that I find extremely helpful. Busting the myth that avoidance is toxic. This idea that when big emotions arise for us, whether it's, a conversation we're having with our spouse in the kitchen, we were all just in Thanksgiving mode, cooking together and blah, blah, blah. You chop the carrots this way. No, you do it that way, or whatever arises. Like big emotions can arise in family life all the time. So you have this wonderful take that instead of always thinking we have to dive in and, well, what did you mean by that? Or that hurt my feelings? Or how do we, what is this really kind of getting to? Maybe sometimes it's better to leave things alone for a little while. And I'm wondering, how does that work for adult-adult relationships versus adult-child relationships? And how do we know the difference? When to dive in and when to come
Yeah.
back later?
Well, let me give you an example of a way in which um, I use this in my own adult to adult relationship. So, you're familiar with a musical artist named Taylor Swift?
Who
You
is?
may have heard of her, right?
I'm human.
So,
I'm human.
okay, you're human. So, uh, she had this Eras tour a couple of years ago, and she came to play in Detroit, which is close to where I live, and just kind of Swiftamonium, if that's a word I just made up. Um,
I
it
like
kind of just took over our community. And we had no plans of going to see Taylor Swift. And the day leading up to the concert, my wife and daughters kind of caught the bug. And at this point, the ticket costs were just
Oh yeah.
becoming outrageous. And so my wife, says to me, like, what do you think we should do? Like, should we go? And for me, this was a very clear decision. I had never heard anyone in the house talk about Taylor Swift or listen to Taylor Swift music before this occurred. And so I said, look, if you want to go, I will support it 100%. We will go. We will have fun. I won't second guess it. But if you're asking me my opinion about what we should do, we should absolutely not go. We should book a fantastic vacation wherever
Wow.
you want and have a wonderful dinner, and we can listen to Taylor Swift during those activities. And so I had thought, that logic prevailed, and it did. We did not buy the tickets. Donna, this was the worst advice I ever gave
Oh.
to my wife, because for the next year, all I heard on a daily basis is how I have deprived the family now of this moment, this kind of like Beatles Madonna moment. And sure enough, I think a year and a half later, she ends up adding more stops to her tour, and she's playing in Toronto. and no one's asking me if we should go at this point. We are going.
Mhm.
And okay, no problem. We get the tick. We commit to doing it. It's on the calendar, and everyone's excited talking about it for months. A week and a half before, it's a Sunday. I look at my calendar for the week, as is typically my ritual to prepare, and I see that I've double booked something, and I cannot get out of this thing that I've double booked without serious professional consequences. And so, to the question of avoidance here, what did I do? Uh, I did something that was very contrary to the way I was raised. The way I was taught to deal with emotions implicitly is growing up is you confront the situation immediately, you work it through, you move on. Turns out sometimes that doesn't work when the other person doesn't want to confront it. So I went into my wife and I said, "Hey, look, I'm so sorry. This is on me. I really screwed up here. But we can't leave on this day to go see Taylor Swift because I can't." And although I wanted to talk it through and come up to a solution, I knew the best thing to do would be to say that, leave the house for a little bit, and not re-engage on this topic until the next day, 24 hours later. And sure enough, at that point, we were able to have a civil conversation about this. We came up with a backup plan. We ended up seeing it. But the point is, if I were to have tried to just push that problem solving mode on my wife right in the moment, right there, this would have backfired terribly. And so a little bit of avoidance there, like distracting, not talking about this purposefully, served our relationship really, really well. Now, to this broader point, though, about avoidance that you raise and that this example highlights, it can be a little tricky. We have a tendency as a species to throw the baby out with the bathwater, which is to say, when we identify cases in which something is harmful, specific context, we overgeneralize. Is it the case that chronically avoiding talking about or expressing difficult emotions, is that a bad thing? And absolutely yes. Unequivocally, there's so much data showing that people who their decision rule is whenever something bad happens, I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to shove it aside, never get back to it. This does not work out for people. It predicts a host of negative psychological and physical consequences. Because chronic avoidance is so harmful, though, we've overgeneralized to say any form of avoidance is bad. This is not true.
I
And
love
if you
that.
embrace that idea, you are leaving behind a tool that can be unbelievably helpful. Donna, have you ever gotten an email that lights you up and the temptation is to respond right away, but you don't do it? You don't go there. You wait a day and then you respond and find that,
I have
boy,
a
are you glad?
3-day rule. If it pisses me off, I have a 3-day rule. I print it. I use the old-fashioned printer, print it out, put it in an area of my desk where I'm not going to be. And then, a lot of work happens here when I'm not
Yeah,
engaged.
what we call your psychological immune system is functioning. So it's a metaphor, right? Like an immune system, it works to lessen infections and all sorts of insults to your body, right? Inflammatory responses, etc. We have a psychological immune system that is geared towards helping you return to equilibrium, emotional equilibrium. One key agent of that immune system is time. Here's what we know about time. As time passes, the intensity of our emotions fades. Virtually the vast majority of our emotional experiences operate this way. You're living life, something happens, an emotion goes up. As time goes on, it eventually subsides. If you just let time pass, rest assured, when you come back to that problem, it's not going to typically feel as intense as it was in the moment it was elicited. And that often helps us think rationally about it. So that's, go ahead. You want to get in there?
I can think back to so many moments, which I think are ubiquitous for all of us as parents of teenagers, where I didn't know when to get into something with them because they were clearly struggling and they were coming to me with big emotions, and when to do just what you were saying, to go, you know what, my job here as a parent is to help them distinguish between what feels really big and overwhelming, but we know that tomorrow they'll go to school and it won't really seem like it was that big a deal. Like there's that advantage of our adult view. But sometimes, and I know that you've probably seen this too, the move in parenting is to really take every moment in a child's life from a very young age now to go like, okay, so let's get into that feeling right now, like right here. Let's really dissect it. And so a lot of things are going through my mind. One is seeing this trend in parenting where we really do dissect every feeling in the moment as it happens, unpack it from the child's point of view. And also my 30 years of parenting almost, where I've had to learn when are certain things what we want to unpack and when do we want to come back to it tomorrow, just as you said, and give it some distance, because a lot of processing happens in the teen brain or the child brain. And the more we do for them, the less that neurobiology is really wiring and firing up so they can do it when they launch. So could we also talk about this in the frame of the parent-child or educator-child relationship? Because I think it's something, I don't know, I can't see faces, raise your hand, but that we all struggle with, right, with our kids. How
Yeah,
do
it's
you
a great question.
differentiate? How do you do it?
So there are two factors I take into account: time and desire, and I'll break those down. One thing you need to consider is if a child is coming to you, or a student, or a teen, or choose your descriptor. We know the demographic here. If they're coming to you and they've just experienced something really big, do they have to deal with it in that moment, or do you have the luxury of time to come back to it later on? Sometimes, I've had kids come to me on the soccer field, like with big emotions, like we got to deal with it right now, right? Or one of my kids is in a social context. It's at a party. I'm at the party. Someone's bothering them. We got to deal with it right now. Their distraction isn't really an option, right?
Yeah.
Avoidance, because
Yeah.
so here's the beauty though, Donna. Avoidance is just one tool in our toolbox, and we've got dozens of tools. So there are other tools we can use in that context. Um, but in other instances, time is a luxury. Time is an option. So if my daughter, bombs on her exam that really meant a lot to her, or gets rejected from the person who she likes, we don't have to talk about it right in that moment. We can go, to Target. I'm still. This is a great puzzle, by the way. Like the appeal of Target to teenagers and tweens. I might write a book on this next. I don't know what it is, but they love doing that. It's a distraction. I'd rather go for a walk in the park. They go to Target. You get the point, right? We can make a decision. And one of the insights that I had when working on Shift is that we can act as tools to activate the tools inside the people we care about for managing their
I
emotions,
love that.
right?
Yeah.
So, like,
Right.
I'm in a position as someone who knows a fair amount about emotion regulation. If you come to me with a problem, like, I can choose to press start on your distraction tool, or press start on your reframing tool, or press start on any other tool. So I'm thinking really carefully about what are the circumstances here that the my kid or someone I'm teaching cares about. What tool would serve them best? So time is one factor you want to consider. The second is desire. Do they want to actually talk about this? Right? One mistake we often make is we impose our own desires as parents and teachers on what's good for the kid emotionally on them. Um, about 24 years ago at this point, was it 24? 9/11 occurred. I had just moved to New York City actually a week before to start graduate school before the towers were hit. And I remember in the aftermath of those towers coming down, there was a huge amount of money, millions and millions of dollars were injected into the New York City ecosystem to provide counseling and therapeutic support for people. And the assumption was we've got to get everyone in that city to talk about the problem. Otherwise, they're going to experience significant trauma. All right, well, fast forward 4 or 5 years after 9/11, what do we find? Uh, Forcing people to talk about their problems at best didn't help them. At worst, it
Real.
actually made things worse. Why
Wow.
is it? Because your desires matter here, right? There are lots of different ways that we could go about managing our emotions. For some people, talking about their problems like helps a great deal, especially if they talk to the right people in the right ways about those issues. Other people, though, they benefit from using other kinds of tools, going for
Wow.
walks in nature, meditating, communing with their culture. It's not a one size fits all solution. It's a lot like physical fitness when we talk about emotion regulation. I like to use the term mental fitness. We all have different ways of being physically fit, right? I went to the gym this morning. I lifted weights and I did some running, and that really works well for me given the way my body is constituted, given my desires. I ask my wife all the time, hey, why don't you come with me to the gym? No, I don't like to do the things that you do. Please, it'd be fun.
No.
Ethan, it's been 25 years. I'm not coming, right? So she does other things, yoga, Pilates, that I don't really like. There's a fit
Sounds
here,
like
and the
me.
same
That's
is
what I
true. Yeah, yeah. So acceptance is another important principle of emotion regulation, especially in
Yes.
dyadic context. So those two factors, just to frame them, time and
Yeah.
desire. That's my roadmap.
I love that. I think it's so helpful for those of us who are trying to help create emotional regulation by osmosis, right? That's or let our kids marinate in how we, you know, push those buttons that you talked about. The more that we're able to do that skillfully, the more they're going to be able to do it when they launch and are on their own, or when they're in troubling situations and need to do this for their friends or themselves. And it seems that a sidetrack to that, when you talked about looking at desire and whether or not there can be time and distance, I wonder if you could talk about your research on venting. I found that fascinating because often when we're raising kids in a community, as you mentioned at the top, there is a lot of chatter, to use your word. There's a lot of chatter in our heads as parents, but also there's a lot of chatter in the parenting group, right? A lot of phone calls going about, well, my kid did this, or what about this with my child? Or sorry to tell you this, Ethan, but this is what my husband did with my child. So what about your work on venting and the difference between it being helpful when we're processing our emotions and we're getting the right kind of advice versus how it can actually leave us in a worse emotional state? Can you talk about that? I find it riveting.
Yeah, I think this is a really important take home. It's one that I can say, without exaggeration, changed my emotional life, both as someone who also has to regulate his emotions at times, but also as an agent that helps other people manage their emotions. So fundamentally, what we're talking about here is whether and how you should talk to other people about emotional issues. Yes, most people, hey, does talking to other people about emotional experiences substantially improve your emotional life? Most people will raise their hand, yes. Follow that question up with another one. Hey, does talking to other people about emotional issues substantially undermine your emotional life at times? Same people raise their hands. So, why does talking to other people at times help and at other times hurt? Fundamentally, this is the issue that we are talking about. And it has to do in part with this idea of venting. There's a very strong cultural belief that you should vent your negative emotions. You should not keep them bottled up inside. You should express them. This idea dates back to Aristotle. Freud popularized it. It's been in vogue ever since. There's been a lot of research on this. And what we've learned is that venting alone does not actually help people work through emotions. Venting can be useful for strengthening friendship and relational bonds between people. Donna, I bet you've had the experience of just finding it so unbelievably satisfying to like find someone to just kind of let it out after someone's pissed you off. It's like
We're all
having like
human.
a great,
It's
great,
guilty pleasure, right? It's a
yeah,
guilty
it's like a
right?
great glass of wine. Like it just feels
To
so
an
good in
extent.
that moment. To
And
an
then
extent.
it
And that's the issue to an extent. So venting, if all you do in a conversation is vent about a problem, you leave that conversation often feeling good about the person you just communicated with because they're empathizing with you, they're supporting you, and that we're social species. The problem is if all you do is vent, you leave the conversation, you're often just as upset, if not even more upset, because you've just spent however long you were talking focusing on the aggravating moments or anxiety provoking elements of your experience. So if venting alone is not the solution, what is? You want to do two things. First, you do want to express your emotions to someone else. They need to learn about what you're going through. It's important for you to get their empathy. But then after you've had the chance to really feel like you've expressed yourself, then ideally the person you're talking to starts working with you to broaden your perspective, to help you look at that bigger picture, to help you reframe your circumstances so you can ultimately move on. That is the formula for both getting good support. So if I'm struggling, like I talk to someone who first listens, then they help me reframe. Or on the flip side, it's also the formula for being a good support provider to someone else. So
absolutely
someone comes to me with a problem, like the reason I love the science is I've got a roadmap now. I'm
right.
going to start by listening empathically and actively. And then after I sense that they've gotten it out, and sometimes if I'm not sure, I'll ask them, hey, I totally get it.
Right.
I have a thought. Can I share? Sometimes they'll say, no, I'm not done. Okay, I keep listening. But other times they'll say, yeah. And then I start helping them. That to me is an invaluable blueprint. And I'll add just one other tiny piece, and then I'm going to throw it back to you. If anyone in the audience here is interested in why these very simple two steps are what is needed for good support, there is fascinating science that underlies this. And the way it works, really simple. We have two core needs when we are struggling with a problem. We have social and relational needs, and we have cognitive needs. What does that mean? Well, we're a social species. When we're struggling, we want to connect with other people. We want them to support us. We know we're stronger than we're with others. So when you're just sharing what's going on and other people are saying, oh, yeah, that could happen to anyone, or I get it, I've got your back, that satisfies those social and relational needs. But then because we also have this like big, beautiful pruned brain that has a tendency to overthink, we also have these cognitive needs. We need to like make sense of what happened to us so we can move on with our lives. And that's often really challenging to do. And other people, when they help us look at that bigger picture, they're helping us address those cognitive needs too. So that's the reason why this works in the way it does.
So I think also we're always conscious of how are we growing our kids or students' brains, right? And if you are creating a world in which the next generation is growing up and they have these skills too, I mean, that has downstream effects for them and for the world at large. If hard things are happening and your kids know that they can internalize these questions that you're asking them. And some that you pose, I think, are so helpful. Like, well, what would you tell a friend if they were feeling this way? Or how have you dealt with this before in the past? And making that elbow turn to the cognitive, we're literally helping their brains become those cognitively agile brains that we want them to be. So as time closes in on us here, and there's so much to get to, folks, so please run out and buy this book because we're only getting to, a few of these wonderful strategies that that Dr. Kross is providing based on real science. I wonder if you could talk about WOOP, because I find that so helpful in terms of a very quick reframe that does several things simultaneously. First, it helps me figure out when I'm overwhelmed, because that's the first step, right? Like sometimes our emotions come in, especially if it's something that's very old and very triggering for us, and we don't even notice that we're caught up in that storm. And so Whoop can really help us go, okay, look, this is not where I want to be. This is not me at my most cognitively agile. This is not me being the best person, the best family member, or even having really a sense of loyalty to myself. I can do better. And Whoop is a tool to help us do that. And I think it's beautiful because it's about the now, but it's also about the future, right? And so I
Yeah.
wonder if we can talk about that and break it down.
Well, I'll share with you one of my biggest frustrations surrounding teaching people about the tools that I describe in Shift. So I'll often do workshops on these topics, or give a keynote, or teach a class, and people will inevitably, and they're always fun. I love doing it. Uh, the report is that people typically leave those sessions with two or three things that have stuck. And I consider that a huge victory. But I've taught people about like 18 different things, right? And so I think about, oh my God, well, two or three stuck, but imagine if seven or eight. We have this tendency to, and we, I mean human beings here, to make goals and then not really follow through with them. Right. So I'm going to attend this workshop on emotional regulation. I'm going to learn this stuff and I'm going to apply it in my life. And people just apply one or two things. Lots of scientists have studied, why is it the case that we're so bad at following up with our intentions? This is often called the New Year's resolution dilemma. Right? Everyone's going to be healthier. Everyone's going to lose weight. And guess what? Meta-analyses, these giant studies, which combine data from tons of other studies, show that we fail to follow up on our intentions about 50% of the time. Not so good.
Oh, that's scary. That's
Right?
scary.
50%. We could do a lot better. And so scientists have tried to figure out, why is it that we often fail? And equally important, what can we do to get better? And WHOOP is the answer. So WHOOP is an acronym that breaks down the different steps for allowing people to follow up on their intentions. What does WHOOP stand for? Well, step one is the W. That's your wish. What is your goal? So, Donna, give me an emotion regulation goal that you might have with your 20-year-old kids.
I would like that when they snap at me, but not in a terrible way, but just a little, snap, and I feel that it's unjustified. I would like to not go into a story in my head of how I'm here making Thanksgiving dinner for 25 people and just this one little thing is irritating them, and not go into that story in my head about, are you kidding me? Like right now? And not feel the feels, because I'm super close with my kids and I don't want to feel those feels. So help me, Dr. Kross, help me.
Okay. Well, step one is check that box, because you've articulated a specific goal that you want to accomplish, right? You don't want to start ruminating and going down rabbit holes when you get snapped at, when you're trying to do good things. Okay, now let's get to the first O, which is the outcome. Tell me, Donna, if you are successful in not getting the feels, what is that gonna look and feel like to you?
Oh, I can't tell you how many times somebody has, and there's not a lot of snapping, but I don't like it when it happens. I can't tell you how many times I've not responded or just been like, well, of course, it's a busy day and there are 30 people in here and it's chaotic. And then 5 minutes later, someone has thrown their arms around me and been like, oh my God, mom, something, something. That's what I get. I get the connection that to me is the most beautiful and precious thing on the planet. That's what I get.
Oh, uh, and that's beautiful. And I want that. So this is maybe going to be one of my W's now. Um, the reason we just went through that first O, the outcome, is to motivate you,
Yeah.
right? You've got a goal, but now, like you just talked about, a really desirable end state. So we really want to kind of fuel you up now because actually achieving that goal may require some hard work. So we want to make sure you're properly motivated. So let's check the second box. That's that first O. Now let's get to the second O, which is the obstacle. All right, what are the personal obstacles that might get in the way of you achieving the goal that you have and experiencing this wonderful consequence that you just so beautifully described?
Probably for me personally, it's caught up in old intergenerational patterns and just in 5 words, child caregiver after death of parent when I was a child. Like
And that gets activated for you
it's
in these
activated,
situations,
like I'm always taking care of other people, but people are always expecting more
right?
stuff. Yeah. So it's an old story. It's personal to me, but I think we all have old stories, don't we?
Oh, yeah. We all have stories that we tell ourselves and that guide our lives. Now you've identified the obstacle. That's really important because now we know where to shine our spotlight for the final part of WOOP, which is the P, which is a plan. But it's not any old plan. It's a very specific plan. We call it an implementation intention. Fancy phrase for something very simple. It's an if-then plan. If my child snaps at me and I find myself, having all these intergenerational trauma thoughts being activated, then, and you plug in the tool that you're going to use to manage yourself in that situation. And maybe that tool is walking out of the kitchen for a couple minutes, taking a deep breath, and reminding yourself of how much you love your kid. Maybe it is squeezing your fists and doing a little diaphragmatic breathing in a moment. Maybe it's turning on some feel good music to get everyone on the same page. There are tons of different options.
Can I use your mental time travel? Because I do. I have to say, I
Yeah,
learned that in Chatter. I use it all the time. I mean, I use it all day. And I
me too.
mentally time travel to that moment 5 minutes from now where I'm not feeling big feelings. I mean, my feelings aren't huge, but they're just not where I want to be at that moment.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, well, in the scheme and across time and that sort of long thread of moments that we have with our children from here to here, there are 1,000 glistening moments, right, of closeness and that have come about in family life. And we want to be time traveling a little bit for me to some of those in the future and in the past takes me right out of any tiny little pinpoint rabbit hole that I might possibly go into. So can I use that, your mental time?
Yeah, you can use any tool you want. This is totally customizable. Um, so we've just done WOOP. It took us maybe 4 minutes to do it
Yeah.
interactively. You probably, if you were doing this on your own, you could have done it in half that time. What we know is that people who do these WOOPs, this dramatically improves their ability to follow up on their goals. It helps people in part because it makes emotion regulation automatic. So that when you find yourself flustered, when someone snaps at you, you don't let the emotions take hold or you don't start thinking, oh, what should I do? You've already gamed this out ahead of time. You know exactly what you're going to do. And that is a tremendous difference maker. This framework has been used in rigorous studies with kids as young as age 5 and 6, first graders. It's been shown to help them in school quite a bit. It's been shown with teens, adults across the lifespan to help them pursue various kinds of goals, going to the gym more, regulating their emotions more effectively, and so forth and so on. It is also a framework that, although they don't call it this, this is what the Navy SEALs do essentially
Wow.
before every mission they have. What do? They sit around in a group and what's our goal? What's our objective? That's the W. What do we hope to achieve? What does success look like if we accomplish this goal? That's the outcome. All
Mhm.
right, what are the different obstacles that might get in the way of us achieving this goal? Let's list out 5 or 6 different obstacles. And then for every one of those obstacles, let's come up with a plan. If this happens, then we're going to do this. If
Right.
this happens, then we're going to do that. They spend a lot of time doing this so that when they insert themselves into these remarkably hostile situations, they've already gamed out most of the things that could possibly happen. And that's in part why they're so unbelievably successful. Anyone can do this. It is as simple as using this WOOP framework. And so thanks for asking about it. I think this is beautiful, and I will just say it's always amazing to me how reluctant people are to do this after they learn about it. But try it. If it's an important goal, please try it because it can make a difference.
So we are coming sadly to the end of our time. I just want to tell everyone out there that I have reported in this area for a very long time, and I'm just itching to get to the rest of Dr. Cross's incredible strategies. He has so many. So please, please, please get the book, pick up your highlighter, put, sticky notes on it, and sneak this book into like a cabinet in your kitchen so that when things are happening, you can just pull it out, go to your red stickies or whatever color you have for kids, adults, yourself. It's going to change your life. So please do that. I want to turn it over back to Gilda and talk to her about any questions that might have arisen. So Gilda, can I turn it back over to you for any
Absolutely.
questions that might have come up for Dr. Cross?
So, you explained to us why they're important. Now, I really want to get into some of those specifics, just so that we just hear them. I've heard you speak. We know about the value of music, having the right playlist available. How you have so many examples about how that can just shift so quickly. You talk about touch as being so valuable. You've talked about scent, and you've described about being in a hotel and how there's a whole industrial complex about the professionals who make the hotels smell, right? Because it is so successful at shifting us. You mentioned reframing and time travel. Those names may be new to people. Explain those two things.
Okay, so first of all, thanks, Donna, for that lovely comment and just an amazing conversation. Uh, I can't wait to read your new book on rumination. It's going to be great. And Gilda, thanks for keeping me on my toes here with these other shifters. So let me answer those questions really quick. Let me just give folks a framework. This will help them. I think of shifters. So shifters are tools you can use to push your emotions around, turn their volume up or down, shorten or lengthen or shorten how long they last. Some of the shifters that we have, they're inside us, they're internal to us. Sensation, sight, sound, touch, smell, powerful, powerful tools that you can strategically harness to shift your emotions and other people's. Music, you can shift other people and your own emotions within seconds. You don't believe me? Listen to Journey's Don't Stop Believing. You're going to feel really good, really, really fast, or you'll feel really bad, but it will shift your emotions in one way or another, I guarantee. So all of our senses can be emotional shifters because part of the way sensation works is via our emotion. So sensation is how we take in information from the world around us. We need to know if that information is good or bad for us. So when you eat something, that elicits an emotional response. When you hear something, it often elicits an emotional response. When you touch someone affectionately, if it's wanted, that can elicit a positive emotional response. If it is not wanted, it can elicit a negative response. So don't underestimate your senses. Um, Perspective, right? Can we zoom out and look at that bigger picture? Your ability to do that is a vital emotion regulation tool. It helps us reframe what we are going through. We always have the power to reframe things. We've got a camera lens that is built in our minds that helps us adjust the perspective. You just need to know how to use it. Mental time travel is one way of doing that. How am I going to feel about this next week, next year, 10 years from now? Our emotions fade with time. You don't actually have to wait for time to pass, though. You can insert yourself into the future. And what that does is it makes it automatically understood. Oh, this isn't going to last forever. I have a really busy week. I'm kind of stressed this morning, but I'm thinking about how am I going to feel next weekend? Really good, right? So that can take the volume on our emotion down. You can also go back in time. So, Gilda, you heard me talk about my grandmother who survived the Holocaust. I talk a lot about her in my book. When things feel really heavy for me emotionally, I jump into my mental time travel machine. I go back to World War II, 1940s Eastern Europe, and I spend some time with my grandmother. What that makes me realize is, wow, as bad as what I'm going through right now is, it pales in comparison to what she dealt with. Automatically shifts my perspective. And there are many other kinds of perspective shifting tools. So I think that addresses your question. I'll just say those are internal shifters. We also have shifters that exist in the world around us. We talked about people, our spaces, our environments can shift us. And then the cultural institutions that we belong to, those are powerful shifters as well. And my hope for everyone who is listening is to, if you want to, familiarize yourself with where these different tools are, because they really are, they're just waiting for you to activate. And both research and lived experience suggests that they can make a powerful difference, not only in your own lives, but in the lives of the people you care about. So thanks, Gilda, for giving me this opportunity to share them. And thanks, Donna, for the wonderful conversation.
We've
Such a
got a
pleasure to be with you. And I would just add one thing, and that is that you emphasize a lot that each person can create their own cocktail, their own bespoke set of tools that really speak to them and that they can use in difficult moments. So, folks,
Absolutely.
create it.
We've got two quick questions here before we let you go. This one is in regard to using avoidance as a strategy. How do we know when to gauge that it's gone too far or it's good to just let go, both personally and with our children?
So I give a kind of decision tree in the book that addresses precisely this question. It's a really good one. How do you know if it's gone too far? If you find yourself taking some time away, but thoughts keep on reverting back in your mind intrusively, you keep thinking about the problem, so you can't really distract yourself effectively, that's a good indicator that you should use a different kind of tool. And with your kids, you can often see this because they're still upset, and they're either withdrawing or they're talking to you about it. So that's one way you could figure out if it's gone too far. What was the second part of the question or the second question?
How do we know when it's gone too far or it's good to just let go?
Oh, and if it's good to, how do you know the flip side? If it's working, well, that's an easy one. If you take some time off and then you find yourself not thinking about it at all, and when you do think about it, you realize, oh, this isn't a big deal. Problem solved. Avoidance did what it can do at its best.
With your teenage daughter, example of when you reframe a situation.
Oh, all the time. Not performing well on an exam, right? Well,
What would you say?
what I would say to her is we try to, did you study? Did you give it your best shot? Well, this is fantastic. Now this is an opportunity to figure out how we can get better. Um, I reframe it by talking about the times that I haven't done good on exams too, to normalize this experience for her. So those are a couple of framing it as a learning opportunity, making it clear that she's not alone in this experience, that this is true for most people. Those are simple things to do.
As we say goodbye, your final words to the teachers, to the parents, what's one thought you want to leave them with as we close this conversation on shift?
Well, I'll give you three quick thoughts. Number one, it's not easy, for parents or teachers. So if you find yourself struggling at times, welcome to the human condition. Every parent and teacher I've ever met and interacted with does. So that's number one. Number two, If you find this material interesting, I think there's two invitations I'd like to extend. Number one, learn about the different shifters that are out there. There's a lot of beautiful, complex science that underlies these different tools, but what I love about them is the take homes are really, really clear. They're easy to start applying right away. So familiarize yourself with the tools and then share them with other people so you can actually help them as well as yourself.
I've heard you say many times about how it's really important to understand that you can do this work. It's possible to do it. And that's step one, isn't it? Understanding it's
That's
possible to shift it, right?
step one is recognizing that you can control your emotions. Step two is learning about the different tools that are out there. And then step three is start self-experimenting to figure out which combinations of tools work best for you, given your unique goals.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Cross. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Donna. Great conversation. I've enjoyed it tremendously. Thank you, everyone. We will see you next time. Thank you. Have a great
Thank
day.
you. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Appreciate you.